This podcast was recorded at the American headquarters of the Ethereal Society, located in Hollywood, California, where service is the jewel in the rock of attainment.
We have here visiting from New Zealand the Right Reverend Raymond Nielsen, and he knows very well about love and loving the Master and being loved by the Master. And I witnessed many, many years of this man, Ray, giving his love to this great spiritual leader and changing the days and the weeks and the months and the years to be tolerable. The Master, for a moment, speak about him. He was a man of flesh and blood, and he suffered illnesses throughout his lifetime. And Ray Nielsen was one of his chief healers. And if it wasn't for the fact that Ray made himself available at odd hours of the day and into the wee hours of the morning throughout the years, then this spiritual leader may not have been able to complete his mission to earth in such a wonderful fashion, unencumbered by the diseases that could have beset him, save the love that was given to him by this man who sits in our audience tonight. So thank you, Ray. Thank you very much
for coming.
Yes, all the way from New Zealand. He's here on a mission.
Did he come to the podcast, Ray? Or?
I hope so. That's what I heard.
Jude.
I want to throw a question towards what you just said about picking up other people's karma to help them and uplift them. How would you relate that to forgiveness of sin? If one could pick other people's karma and then uplift them and it's all done and you've helped them, would that mean that also they are being forgiven of the reason why they are suffering in the first place?
No, I wouldn't. We're told many, many times that sin is not forgiven because sin is, all of karma is a lesson. It's a classroom. It's a lesson you're learning. And so if someone takes away your lessons, then you don't learn, you see. So that doesn't happen. The manipulation of karma, we're told, shifts the lesson, some of the weight. In other words, someone might have a tremendous burden of their karma on their back, and they're teetering, they aren't able to handle it. So you might come and you might kind of take some of it and from them for a short period of time, then give it back to them when they get stronger and they're able to do it better. That's kind of more what happens. It's not like you take a little bit off and then all of a sudden it all goes away. You see what I mean?
There's a difference between forgiveness and transmutation. And that's the power of love, is when we send love, energy, this cosmic energy to someone who needs this power, it is a transmuting energy. So it will, not might, it will impact their mind and their heart. And given your intensity, given your repetition, given your dedication, given your repeating over and over this desire to help this person, will dictate the speed of their recovery, if it's a disease, or if it's a mental impairment by an attitude that's so fixed, like anger or some jealousy. Prayer with the true power of love can do miracles, and it just takes time. So it is a matter, it's not so much of forgiveness, it's an understanding of the great laws and see how they work and make them work for you. The man who asked this question, by the way, Jude, is one of our finest healers in the Ethereal Society, bar none. He's a wonderful, wonderful soul on earth. And thank you very much for that very astute question. We need more questions like that. So as we go into this, I'd like to bring up one of the interesting phrases that this cosmic being, Mars Sector 6, speaks. And he says, in two words, kill, possession. building possession. What do you possess? Then each and every one of us, we have to look at what we possess. Is he thinking, or is he expressing only about physical things? Is he speaking also of an attitude that you possess? Is he speaking about a man and woman's relationship? I possess her, she's mine. How far do we extend this possession? And I think we can extend it all the way, because he doesn't necessarily have to qualify it. It is a mental frame of mind. It is really strange how we possess and hold so dear that which is really not ours. So materialism is it ties into possession. It ties in, but just not materialism in the sense of things. It's an attitude that we hold on to. We possess an attitude as well. We possess a certain kind of like thought pattern. Well, kill the possession and be mutable, be transmutable. The 9 freedoms allows us this wonderful, wonderful new view on life, a fresh, bright, new dawn, in which, I'll read this here, enlightenment, which is the next freedom, which we'll study next week. Enlightenment, like the break of dawn upon the darkest night, will cast the shadows of this night before it.
We're now living in that darkest night because of possession and materialism. And it's a great hope that along the path of service we will eventually break through this darkness and arrive at enlightenment. That's a beautiful statement as well.
So this Aquarian age, which we just read that one excerpt, it speaks of the transformation that's occurring worldwide. We can feel it. We can see it. The people of the world, not the politicians, but are wishing change. They're looking at each other and saying, why do we need to fight over possessions, be it oil or whatever the commodity may be? We are on the same world. And so
Who's saying that?
Who's saying that?
Most people say that they're still fighting over these things.
That's what I'm saying. There's people out there that want to stop this madness of this possession, I own, you have, I don't have. Yes, Wajid.
The thought comes about, the thought that came into my mind was Andrew Carnegie, who just accumulated so much, such a materialist, and then toward the end of his life, he realized that he had to just give it all away, and that's what he did.
More recently, William Buffett did a similar thing. Well, that's a good point. I mean, if you really look at the two richest people in the world, Bill Gates and William Buffett have both given away together, $60 billion or something like that. So it's perhaps it's a start of a change. I mean, when in the past world history did the richest people do something like that? Carnegie is an example, but it's pretty rare. And in these days, I think just happened a year or two ago, where they kind of combined forces, and I think it's about $60 billion is in that fund now. That's a wonderful sign of the times ahead, we hope.
And here we have the Master, Mars Sector 6, say, serve, and the mighty power of Kundalini will rise in natural, unforced fashion, and open the chakra jewels in your higher bodies. In will pour inspiration, and you will be standing on the verge of initiation into adeptship. These are not idle words. These are promises, divine promises. Can we say that we can go to a yoga school and have a teacher tell us the same thing? Would we believe them? There is something to be said about changing your mind and allowing these truths to enter, not discolored, not conditioned, not transformed so that you can possibly understand it tomorrow. This is straightforward English, right to the heart of the matter. And there's no excuse any longer for misinterpretation.
It also goes right to the point, too. In the old days of the yoga masters, they would say, do your service first so that you can then come and learn the Kundalini Yoga and then go and raise the Kundalini up. Here we're being told, unnecessary. Do the service. Focus on the most important thing now, today, for everyone else, and then, through the service, your Kundalini will rise in a natural, unforced fashion.
And with that, we'll segue into the next extract from the Master George King.
His extract number 2 on karma, and that will be track 4.
If you would burn up lower karmic aspects, you would serve. A lot of people have said to me, well, what about this karma business? How on earth do we get over karma? Well, the answer is you cannot get over karma. But every act you do is either good for you and good for others, or bad for you and bad for others. That your karmic pattern is changing second by second, all the way through your life, both in the waking state and in the sleep state. It's a gradual change. It's a gradual movement. It's like, if you were to see it, you'd see it like a fluctuation of numerous colors, all forming themselves into a certain pattern. And that pattern is your particular Akashic pattern. And when you come into the supra-conscious state, you can read that Akashic pattern and read on it all your actions right the way down through your past lives, both good actions according to law actions and actions which aren't according to law. I don't mean the karmic law now, I mean the basic law, the law of the divine, if you like. So, it's just like a book. It's called an Akashic book. It's not a book with pages as we know, and yet it's even a more sure record. Well, now here we're told something in 2 or 3 simple words, something which is difficult, but nevertheless something which is simply told, that if we serve others, we automatically make for ourselves what might be called a positive karmic pattern, and this is another thing too, we transmute that part of karma which is on the wrong side, or in other words, what might be called, for want of a better terminology, negative karma. You see, we have to face one fact, and whether we like it or not, and I don't think any of us like it if we're truthful, nevertheless we have to face this fact, and that is, divine justice is just. No matter whether we have yellow skins, black skins, red skins, or white skins, it's still the same justice, and it's absolutely, completely just. And the law of karma is completely fair and completely just on every living thing. Even a cat and a dog comes under this law, a stone comes under it. The air we breathe comes under this great basic law, and it's just, perfectly fair in every way. And we cannot escape in one way or another. We get to such a pitch, by the way, when we can help the law, when we can use the karmic law to help ourselves. And when we get to that pitch, we know then that it's no kind of a punishment or no kind of a bond on us, but it's there for our benefit. So if you would alter your karma, you would serve, because you cannot serve without altering your karma, especially in these days.
He gives away a real important secret there. You know, often when you hear people talk about karma, they'll say, if you kill somebody this life, you'll be killed next life, to learn the lesson of not killing. But he's saying in here that that's not necessarily the case, because you can transmute your karma. That the whole point of karma is not to punish. The point of karma is to teach. And so if through service you can learn the lesson that you would have learned by being killed in another life, then you would transmute the necessity for that exact reaction because you would have learned the lesson. And there was a wonderful example in the movie about Mahatma Gandhi, where this Indian came up to Mahatma Gandhi and said, "Help me. I've done this terrible thing. I've killed this 11-year-old Muslim child. And I feel horrible and I don't know what to do." And so Mahatma Gandhi said, what you do is this. You go and find an 11-year-old Muslim, and you, whose father had been killed, let's say, and adopt him, and you raise him as a Muslim. And through that process, he didn't say, but we can conclude from through that process, he will learn many, many, many things. And if he does it properly with true love in his heart, then the likelihood is that he will transmute that necessity of needing to be killed the next life. And it's a great lesson, and it's a great thing to keep on top of your head, because the way that we can transmute our negative karma in the past, and we all have it, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And the best way to do that is through service.
The Master says, break away from your own troubles by concentrating upon the suffering of others. And we all, once again, let's talk honestly, we all think about our own troubles, our loneliness, the lack of support, the lack of understanding, the lack of, etc., etc. Replacing that concentration of energies as the God children that we are, that these wonderful cosmic masters have repeatedly through the years have expressed that we are creators. So obviously we've created a world of all these terrible situations. But at the same time, with that same creative energy, we can transform the world. And this is where we're going. This is where service is. It is releasing that concentrated, negative creative ability of creating a world of dismal, selfish, neediness, and say, well, there's people across the planet, our brothers, and by the way, our family. In the book of Karma, the Master King speaks about it's not on the top of the list of karmic impact. It's not the top of the list of the best thing to spend the rest of your life just taking care of your family.
Well, actually, he says it doesn't even count.
It doesn't. I'm being polite.
He's
very direct. It doesn't count in the sense that in the karmic book, our brothers, the cosmic masters, have spoken throughout the years. Your closest brother is a Chinaman who may be communist right here, right now, on this world.
I just want to correct that statement. It doesn't count, but if you don't do it, it would probably count. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of like you're expected to be nice to your family and your friends. Okay, and so in a way, it doesn't count. But if you aren't nice to your family and friends, obviously then it will count on the negative side.
I'd like to relate the fantastic story in the life of the wonderful Lord Buddha, who was visiting a village, and a very rich member of that area who lived apart from the village, who had a house on the hill, very, very well off with servants. And her child was sick and dying. And the woman came down to beg to see the Lord Buddha, to plead for this child's life. And the Lord Buddha said, yes, suffering is very, very bad. And she said, well, I'll do anything. I'll give you any money you want. Can you help my child? And he said, well, he said, I will help. He said, but you have to do one thing for me. And she said, what's that? He said, I want you to go into the village and find me a house without suffering. And when you found that house, come back and I'll save your child. And she went into the village, of course, that she hadn't been to, and she went into each of the houses and she found such suffering that she could never believe it existed. And she came back and she, fell before the Buddha and said, I understand what you're talking and what you're telling me. Mm-hmm. I will come down and my riches will be used in helping these poor people. I had no idea of their suffering. So she ended up as a person who was devoted her life to service.
Wonderful story.
I have something to say. I belong to an organization called Sai Baba of India, Buddha Party. But I am originally from Sri Lanka, which is a predominantly Buddhist country, born to a Roman Catholic family. And I have been a citizen here for the last 30 years. Now, through our organization, on a regular basis, we feed the homeless people, weekly, sometimes daily, depending on the groups of people who are doing this work, clothing, all that kind of thing, and giving blankets during winter time. We investigated and we found that, the laundries, cleaning places, they have clothes washed and kept, pressed and kept. No, the people have not come and collected them. These have got accumulated over the years, and they didn't know what to do with them. I found a place in Westport, the biggest one. They have their workshop, everything inside. And I spoke to the manager. He said, well, we have lots of clothes, but I need a letter from your organization, signed by your secretary or somebody, letterhead. No problem. I brought it. I said, what is the value of the clothes? We wrote that so that they got a tax relief of that. We got a truck load of clothes from that place. We took them to Santa Monica. In front of the city hall, you find about 400 people there. Every evening, homeless people distributed them. So it worked both ways, We help them as well as these people here.
That's a wonderful story. Very nice. That's a great idea.
That's service. That's a form of service, without a shadow of a doubt.
It's a win-win.
It is win-win. It is win-win. There's a haunting question almost. It kind of has resounded throughout the years, and when those of us who come across these wonderful teachings and wonderful light of inspiration pours down upon our minds and we are illuminated, the question comes, what can we do today? Let's say we can't necessarily acquire the clothes for the homeless people. What can we do in a practical way of service? And therein lies the second freedom. That's, if you look at the strategy of what this cosmic being has done, he is leading us along the path. And so it's not detaching from the first two freedoms. It is the combination of bringing bravery and love and applying it in service to the world. And so there are many ways. And so those of you who are listening out there, there is a wonderful book which we'll refer to today, and it is in regards to spiritual healing. It is a wonderful form of service. It teaches so many aspects of the divine laws and how we play such a vital role and how to contact this divine energy. So I'll refer you to a book called You Too Can Heal by Dr. George King. It was penned in 1975, and every word, every technique in this book is safe, and practical. Thereby, the results will be not so much immediate, because sometimes some people are very difficult to heal. The Master said once, talking about this, he said, a question was asked, can all diseases be healed? He says, yes, all diseases can be healed, but not all people. But consistent the consistent onslaught, almost like a campaign, like a war. You have a person that has a disease. We've talked about this in the last freedom. A person has a disease. Your one spiritual healing treatment may not resolve that disease, but consistent healing for days and weeks and months, your unbridled attention to the outcome which you visualize, predetermined, is that they will improve in their health. That is service. Leap across the world now, in Baghdad, and not to use the Iraq war as an example, but there's horrible atrocities occurring now that your attention can be directed towards. There are people who are being murdered, not only in Iraq and Baghdad or across that country, but all over the world, in the Sudan. What's happening to these souls when they're released from their body on a daily basis? What's happening when they project out their body, blown up to bits or stabbed or killed? What's happening to these people? This is what you have the capacity of changing. You can spend your time, let's say tonight, and send your power to these souls. Thousands of people in the world tonight are suffering by the release of a horrible, murderous act, and off to the plains and wandering. Your power of love, the second freedom, directing it to these souls and asking God to help soothe them, to give them the guidance in their new direction, because they're directionless. They don't have a direction. This is the kind of service that we're talking about, not just the one person, but the many. So you have a wide bandwidth of applications. You don't have to just specialize on your family or your friend, but you can leap across the world and see it on the front page of any newspaper, and you have multiple targets.
Well, the important thing really is to have the confidence that you will help. And it's one thing to see these terrible things happening, but it's so easy to say, well, what can I do? Or do a prayer and say, well, I sent this prayer up, but what is it really doing? And then you can go back to this book and you can realize that it is doing some good. And the more that you do it, the more good you will be able to do. And this is not just a hobby, but this is the path back to God. So the more you do this, the more you're helping others, the more you're progressing, the more you help others, on and on and on and on. And it's what we're meant to be doing in these days.
Before we go to the next extract, one last thing. If you don't do it for yourself, these acts, white magic, then do it for the planet upon which we reside. Imagine her sensitivity to what's happening upon her body. Because she has a consciousness that thinks far more deeper, far more broader than we will for millions and millions of lifetimes. This being has to suffer in one form or another the atrocities that we perform on one another. So if we can't think about ourselves today, why don't we think about how she can be helped by our direct action of performing divine love magic? And this is the service that the Master Mars Sector 6 speaks of.
Remember that she's held herself up since the days of Atlantis for us. Long, long time.
This podcast was recorded at the American headquarters of the Ethereal Society, located in Hollywood, California, where service is the jewel in the rock of attainment.